lot of people think once your car's in an accident, man, it's never the same. I mean, what do you think?
So,
The person that hits you, even though it's not your fault, they may not have insurance. So then what are you going to do?
yeah, back in the day, it wasn't as big of a deal because there weren't $100,000 cars all over the road like they are now.
Because you own your own family business, you can give the level of service that you want to give.
Definitely.
And that's why you take such good care of people.
It's our name on the building. It's our name on it.
Have you ever had one of those frustrating days? You get in an accident, you mess up your car, you road rash your rims, whatever it is, right? That's just something that is kind of like really annoying, right? So one of the things that I wanted to talk about on today's show, I've got a very special guest, Reuben Artiaga, owner of Artigas Collision here in Bakersfield. And I got to tell you that he deals with this all the time. And not only is he dealing with the upset customer, but he's got to be the mediator to the insurance carrier and all of the above. And it is a pleasure having you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here. We've talked about it a little bit. Finally got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, that's great.
Definitely.
So what is it like owning a auto body collision center in the state of California these days?
A lot like being in a car accident. You just never know what to expect. You wake up, things hurt. You have anxiety. Wake up at 2 a.m, wondering if you remembered to do something. It's tough. It's gotten a lot tougher over the last 20 years. Seems like every year there's something new. Technology changes on the cars, which makes it harder. Insurance companies change their kind of way they do things, way their adjusters do things, the way they fix cars, the way they pay to fix cars. And then the state just doesn't make anything easy.
Right. So like a lot of this is really kind of stuff that's really outside of your control, right?
Definitely.
You're a businessman just trying to take care of your customers, and you're having to navigate all the landmines, sidestepping them, and trying to make it work for everybody and still make a profit.
Definitely. State makes the profit part hard.
I'm sure.
Insurance companies don't help with that either, but it is what it is. It's what we've done this in this business, Artigas Collision, for 20 years.
Wow.
July of 2004 is when we opened. My dad's actually been an automotive painter since the late 70s. They had a shop class at East High, and he started there working. Did junior, senior year, I believe, in that, similar to what they do in the ROP now, but it was actually on campus as a class. And summer after that, got a job at a body shop, and 2 years later was a painter. And he's been painting cars ever since, still does it.
So that's something that he enjoys.
He doesn't do it every day, all day, but he loves it. He's always said it's not a job. He loves to do it. So it's easy for him.
That's really cool.
And he was good at it.
So you get to work with your dad
every day, 10 to 12 hours a day.
Man, that's great.
I tell everybody it's a blessing, and we've had our moments, but
I'm sure. I would want to be on the fly on the wall on some of those conversations with that, right?
Yeah, we've had it out a couple different times. You know how the older generation is; they don't want to change, and things are constantly changing and evolving. And so, trying to push him in those directions, push him out of his comfort zone, kind of gets him fired up. And he's confrontational, and I don't back down from confrontation because.
Yeah, that's just the way it is.
We've had this dynamic for 47 years, so might as well just keep running with it.
Man, if it works, right?
I haven't quit. He hasn't left, so we're doing all right.
No, that's really, really good.
No, it's truly a blessing. I get to work with my mom, my dad, one of my sisters. She's there. She helps out and does data entry and answers phones, and my mom does the account payable stuff and handles that for me, so I don't have to do it. So.
Man, you guys get to spend a lot of time together, right?
We do. It's good. I mean, I get along with my parents really well. My sister, me and her, we get along. We're not the same people. We may not agree with each other all the time, but we definitely get along.
Oh, that's really neat to be able to say that.
It is. I mean, you work with your wife. You have to have boundaries. That's harder in our dynamic with the parents and the kids.
Oh,
but,
yeah, right.
Then
it's like the whole
they're
thing.
the parents. You're supposed to listen, but they're not always right. Don't tell my kids.
No, right? Yeah, if they're going to be watching this episode, they're going to say, you know what, Dad said,
right?
They're not always right. So that's pretty awesome. So tell me a little bit about like what's really kind of been more challenging. You brought up like technology and just like the parts. I mean, You know,
Yeah.
I remember a few years back when we had that little situation with a headlight,
Hmm.
and it's like $2,600, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "What's up with a $2,600 headlight?"
Yeah.
That's a commonality these days.
So headlights are a big deal because most manufacturers have all gone to LED. They're
Okay,
brighter, they last longer. They're
they
a lot
move.
of these your guys has moved. And some of them like yours, you would program it, worked great for a little bit, then wouldn't work. Then you had other issues, parts of that headlight. So headlights come with 2 or 3 different control modules when you have that self-leveling and the auto dynamics where when your car turns, they're following the road. I mean, it's a lot of new stuff. And then when Tesla first came on, I mean, nobody wanted to touch a Tesla.
Right, yeah.
Everybody's, oh, you have to be Tesla certified. And you really don't, because that's every manufacturer has certification you can have. They try and push it. It's all you're doing is buying into their business. You're paying them to teach you about their cars when all these cars are pretty much designed the same. Once you take one apart, you can take most of them apart. But yeah, it was Tesla just because of the name, the price tag that came with them. They were a little bit different beast. But once I started dealing with the service center here in town, and they're like, hey, they're just like any other electric car.
Right.
Would
You
you
just
do?
had to.
What would you do to a Prius? Well, that's all you do to a Tesla. They're the same thing. It's just wrapped in a different shell. It's a little shiny toy. Costs a lot more money. Same thing. Same principle.
So does it ever get to a point where if it's in a bad enough accident and it kind of messes up the battery and stuff, I mean, that's got to be a whole nother like dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah. So anything where you're getting into dropping the battery, which because basically you've got to take that car off what you would consider a frame because that battery's all encased in that unit. So you pull that body off. Whoops, sorry. Pull that body off, and then from that point, it's a lot more. Everything has to be recalibrated. Everything has to be gone through a process. So we kind of stay away from that part of it. If it's bumpers, replacing panels, that kind of thing, we can do that. But getting into like the battery cells on those, and there's just a lot. You run into a lot more issues. You open a lot more can of worms. So there's a shop in town that's certified for that, so they can have that.
So that's pretty much like when people call you and go like, "What do you got, Tesla?" Okay, and when you find out it has battery problems, then,
Right.
then
Yeah.
it needs to go somewhere else,
Yeah.
right?
And a lot of that stuff, because they are still so new, a lot of them are still under warranty. So service center will handle that. But things due from a collision, then yeah, we'll send them to a shop that's been certified.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts, no pun intended, right?
No,
When we're really
definitely.
talking about all these things and
A ton.
the computer, the cameras, the self-drive or, lane keep, all of that stuff. I mean, it seems like
Hmm.
you're just not only in the auto body repair business, but you're in the calibrating business. You're, trying to figure out, how all these things work together. And is it true that, I think a lot of people think once your car's in an accident, man, it's never the same. I mean, what do you think?
So in my lifetime, I've driven a lot of cars that have been in accidents that have even been total losses and been repaired. Most people find the issues after the accident. Some of those issues have been there. You may hear a noise. Well, say, I know you have a newer truck.
Right.
You've had some issues with it. But when you bought it from the dealer and you drove off, did you drive home with the radio off?
No,
AC off? No noise?
no.
You'd be surprised that 90% of people that have been in an accident when they pick their car up from my shop drive home with no sound.
So what is that like
You get it sounds like my air conditioner's making a noise. Yeah, it's the Freon running through the lines. That's what sends your cool air. You just hear a lot of things that you normally never listened for. We've bought new cars. I don't get in it, turn the radio off, drive home. And
Well, you just expect it to
To
like
be
all
right.
work and be right, but after it's
Which-
been in an accident,
Mhm.
you're looking
You're
for stuff.
looking for things because you hear that all the time. It's never the same after an accident.
Yeah.
Big accidents, I can see that, especially depending on who repairs it, how well they do their job. And that's for a long time, especially 80s and 90s, body shops where you could make a lot of money because there weren't insurance adjusters. There weren't adjusters coming back and re-inspecting the work, seeing if you did what you got paid to do. There weren't other shops that would kind of basically badmouth, dig apart other people's jobs.
Right.
Insurance companies kind of had a lot to play in that too, because when they had certain what they call like their Allstate had the Good Hands network. Basically, it's a direct repair. So if you call into your insurance company and you don't know where to go, which a lot of people have never been in an accident, don't know where to go, they direct them to one of their shops. Well, the only reason they're one of their shops is they may have a certain certification, but they give them a discount on labor. They give them a discount on rates, possibly parts, because they're pushing a volume of work into them. So they give them a discount. You're going to spend X amount of dollars with us a year. I can discount some of the labor, some of the material, whatever the case is. And so that kind of pushes that, to these shops that may not be the best shop, but they can get it done. And then you have people that have issues. And so everybody kind of always comes back to that. The accident caused this, the accident. I get people that are hitting the right front. You fix everything and, oh, now my left tail light doesn't work. Well, those are on completely different electrical circuits. You got a bulb out. Nothing that happened in the right front, minor damage, caused that. But that's their thought process. It wasn't like that before.
That's interesting because if you think about it, I could see where people get probably. I mean, it's a stressful situation.
It is.
You're trying to keep everybody, calm, right, on all fronts. The insurance carrier's like, well, we can't do that. And then you're kind of advocating for the customer because you're the one having to deal with the customer and you want to take care of your customers, which I know we've had to visit a few times, just a few.
It happens.
But it happens.
Wasn't your fault.
It wasn't. Yeah. Some of the times.
I mean, one time was.
Yeah. But my point is that when you're coming in there, you're already kind of stressed out. And I think it is the natural just assumption that it's not going to be done right. And people probably are really stressed out and worried about it. And you're having to calm everybody down, tell them it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then when there's a few bumps in the road, you have to kind of manage that. And I got to tell you, you actually do that really, really well because I remember in this last one, that wasn't our fault, by the way. Right. That was that was kind of a doozy because the insurance carrier, we won't name any names, right, was saying, oh, I think this is repairable. And you're like, this isn't repairable. And they wanted to tow it to one of their shops, right? And I was like, no, we need to tow it to Reuben's because I trust Reuben. He always takes good care of me. I know he's a great reputation and he's going to, give it to me straight. And that's what happened. And if I recall correctly, they didn't even send anybody out the first go around. They just went off on pictures. And then by the time we got my insurance carrier involved, because this one, didn't have enough in the limits, right, to make the repair. And I'm thinking, gosh, you wasted all this time and money, right, to get this same result. If you would have sent somebody out there, we wouldn't have had to go there. It was really frustrating.
Right. And you even talked to them, the reason, and one of the other reasons they wanted it to go to one of those direct repair shops is at the end of all that, no matter how long it took, they wouldn't have had to pay them storage because that's usually in that contract. They might have paid them a little bit of teardown time, but and depending on how busy they were or how interested they were, knowing that was a total loss, how soon would they have gotten to it? So yeah, with yours it was. I mean, from the day it rolled in, I was straight up with you. I told you I don't think they're going to repair this car.
Right.
But they came in with a low estimate because they went off the photos that you had originally sent in from the accident. You can only see so much in a photo. You can't move a part. You can't. When you came out that second or third day that it was there, I'm able to pull parts down. The bumper's hanging there. I'm able to pull sensors that are hanging there out and show. And we look at it, and that's an $800 sensor.
Right.
We just slowly started adding, and then we brought it into the shop, took the lift gate off, took the bumper off, took all the interior out of that back floor, so you could see the damage and see the inside, the structural damage that was inside. And it was funny is because even when we sent them the estimate and our photos, they still tried to think it was repairable. And I don't remember what the numbers were, but we were somewhere around $40,000-$50,000.
Yeah.
And and then
actually when you were finished, I think it was over $81,000 to repair. Yeah. And I think you had to replace a roof. And then at that point they finally oh, okay, and then it was like, you know what? We spent too much money, and anyway, I had to end up calling my insurance carrier anyway, and they took care of me in a week, which was a lot different. So I think a lot of this was for me. I felt very comfortable that you were involved, and I felt good about it. But I do remember all of the uncertainty of man, I just don't want to deal with this hassle. Yeah. And you were like, "That's good, man. I got this," and I check in with you every couple of days. And, a lot of it, too, was the inconvenience. I had financed that car and got a really good interest rate. And the promotion was running again. So we were running out of time before that expired, to do it again. And it was man, this is really inconvenient. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the stuff that you're dealing with. It was
Oh yeah.
clearly, right, a total loss,
Right.
but we
You
weren't
know.
getting that.
Yeah, and we kind of not got the runaround, but the process they went through trying to get to that point, and then telling you they don't have it in their limits and they're not going to cover this. They're not. That wouldn't be on them. Now you have to get your insurance involved because you have the correct riders to cover what you have invested in your
Right.
vehicle. And then what was that adjuster was out there within 2-3 days,
Yes.
and that was quick only because his schedule was as busy as it is.
Right.
So and he walked out and said the same thing we did. I mean, that's total loss. Why'd they tow that here? That
Right.
should have went directly to Copart and been conditioned and ready to go. Should have been done in a week, and we were at week 4, I think, by the time he got there.
Yeah. People pay a lot of money for insurance.
And then you look at people that don't have an extra car, like with you and Joanne that work together.
Yeah.
You're able to ride together most of the day if you have to. Some people don't have that, where they just have the one car and now it's in the shop and they
Oh,
either
man.
can't afford a rental, and so it makes it even more of a stressful situation. And that's when you got to kind of back your customers down and be like, hey, we don't want to rush the repair process.
Right.
We want to get it done as quick as we can for you, but your car's not drivable. We are 2 weeks out right now, so by the time we get parts and everything, we can get it started, but you're going to have to kind of sit tight. And it's hard for some people. Some people have the luxury of having a spare car or having multiple cars in the family where you can make it work and not have to be out a rental. I mean, rentals are 3 times what they were
Oh, man.
5 years ago.
Right.
So compact car now I think is like $60 a day, $50 a day if you're doing it out of pocket. Sometimes they'll help you and give you your insurance's discounted rate, but it's hard. It's a hard process. And now with the economy the way it is, I've seen more $2,500 deductibles in the last 6 months than I've seen in 20 years.
Wow.
And I mean, that's a big nut to crack to bring in. You're covering the first $2,500 of a collision that is your fault or not your fault if the other person didn't have insurance. And I mean, that brings up the whole new point with they're raising those PLPD limits in California. So how many more people are just not going to have insurance? So now you have to make sure you have underinsured, uninsured, and so your insurance covers it if you happen to be in an accident with one of those people.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up because I don't think people really think about that, especially the younger folks, right?
No.
I mean, that's a good point. The person that hits you, even though it's not your fault, they may not have insurance. So then what are you going to do?
Yeah. Back in the day, it wasn't as big of a deal because there weren't $100,000 cars all over the road like they are now.
Yeah.
I mean, Bakersfield has gotten so big and grown so much. You see a lot more of the high-end SUVs, the high-end, I mean, even the Corvettes now, they're $100,000.
Yeah.
To $100,000. So if you hit one of those and total it and you've only got $10,000 worth of coverage,
Wow.
where's the rest of that money coming from? Well, they're going to sue you. Their insurance may do it or they may do it, civilly, but it's your only option. But if you've got somebody that had the baseline insurance, the base limits, and you sue them, are you going to get anything?
Well, and
I mean,
it's hard. It's hard to have that conversation
It is.
because I do see a lot of people that have limits. That's not our thing usually on the individual side. But
Right.
but like personally, I'm like, man, yeah, I want to make sure that I'm covered because I don't want to have a situation like that.
Right.
But I've talked to a lot of people that have been in a situation where they got a brand new car and literally like within the first like 6 weeks they get hit and the person doesn't have insurance and they're like.
Yeah, I've got a customer that was there yesterday, brand new Stingray Corvette, and girl ran into him. Luckily, she only damaged the bottom section of the bumper. It's still $2,000 to replace this piece. I don't have to paint anything. It comes match the color. All I have to do is take that back bumper off, put the new piece on it. $2,000.
$2,000.
The girl has a $2,000 deductible, so she's not fixing her car. So they're going to pay out of pocket to fix that Corvette so it doesn't ding their insurance. And we've seen a lot more of that in the last 3 or 4 years is people paying cash, especially people with teenage drivers. Their teenage driver runs into somebody, hey, let me pay that cash because what your insurance is going to go up is going to cost you over the next 3 years, basically financing that. Plus, it's going to cost you. I mean, I've got a customer, daughter pulled out in front of somebody, got hit. It's her fault. He came out of pocket, fixed the truck that hit her. Now he's coming out of pocket to fix hers cash because hers is going to go up from $250 a month to $650 a month if he claims that accident. because she's
That's like
18,
what,
I
3
think.
times,
Yeah,
man, right?
yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah, and that's going to be for 3 to 5 years that they're going to pay that. And if she has to go out and get insurance on her own, or they have to get a new policy, it's that accident's going to be on there, and it's going to follow her for probably 5 years.
You know what's really crazy about now you have this situation where you have a more limited amount of carriers that are actually writing insurance in California,
Yeah.
right? And then you're having these, catastrophic events, which, it affects everything, right? Because
Right.
a lot of the homeowner carriers are the ones that are doing the auto, right?
Yeah.
They're bundling it together.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have people leaving, and then you have rates going up. Then you have the young drivers, this and that. I mean, we can go on and on and on
Yeah.
about like how expensive it is just in general. And then you have a situation like that where somebody's having to make a decision going, man, I'm going to have to pay for this out of pocket. So I feel like a lot of times, man, you're kind of like a counselor or therapist, right? Just trying to work.
Sometimes you
this
have
with
to be.
Steve,
Sometimes
right?
you're talking people down off the ledge. I mean, it's an emotional thing to have happen. I mean, you guys know. I mean,
Yeah.
that was fairly recent. I mean, it's very emotional. And if you've never been in an accident, especially like with your guys's being hit that hard in the rear end, I mean, it can be a traumatic experience.
Oh, yeah.
It can cause anxiety. I mean, I've got people, and I'm not a firm believer in it, but I was kind of wild when I was young, and so
Sure.
I've been in a couple car accidents,
Right.
not driving and driving, and so and it's all how you compartmentalize things and how you deal with things. But I mean, you never don't want to tell somebody, you shouldn't feel like that. I mean, if you feel like that, you feel like that. It's definitely, if it's never happened, I mean, it's a loud experience. It's an all of a sudden kind of just jolt to your system, and a lot of adrenaline, and it's after the fact, it's like, wow, that's crazy. And then you're trying to go to sleep that night, and you're still up here with the adrenaline, and now you start worrying, well, what's going to happen with my car?
Right.
What am I going to do tomorrow to get here and there? Then you wake up and you're sore, you can't do anything. And I've had it happen, and it's a scary situation for a lot of people.
And then you're trying to walk them through the process.
Right, definitely.
And then try to reassure them to say that, look, this is just how it works. I mean, that was one of the things that was what I really appreciated, even though like I, kind of understood what was happening.
Right.
But this whole thing was, man, how long is it going to take to tear it down?
They drug it along, and
Yeah.
we shouldn't have even had to get that far. We shouldn't have had to pull it in the shop and tear it down to prove to them, with what we're already showing them in photos, that thing was a total loss.
Well, and if they would have sent an adjuster out, an actual physical
yeah.
person, then they would, because when they came in, because they did, after you gave them that supplemental, they came in and said, okay, well, we want to send somebody down now.
Right.
And once they did, they were like, oh, yeah, this car's totaled.
Yeah.
Okay. We agree.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you could have saved everybody a bunch of time if you just sent somebody down there to begin with. I mean, I get it. Maybe when I looked at it, I mean, we don't have the photos to show, but man, when you look at it, you're like, the funniest part was I was like, are you serious? They like, I mean, this thing's frame damage, I mean, I was always told, he's like, and you're like, man, you'd be surprised, right? That they require that because it's so expensive to fix, right?
And it was an expensive car. So when you look at a threshold on that thing,
right,
it's the threshold is a lot higher than what you would look at for like a 2009 Honda Civic.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot more repair. You're going to have a lot more parts, but getting that threshold, I mean, it was harder, but I mean, when the damage is there, it's there. It's not that hard to do.
Everything is much higher now. I mean, look at what trucks cost.
Oh, yeah.
If you get an SUV, even if it's a, Yukon or a Tahoe, I mean, those things are going for like, loaded up, man, they're like 90 grand.
Yeah. And
right?
if you look at the used car market, I think it's only at around 25 or 30 now from like 2019 and 20. COVID, when they couldn't get cars, couldn't get chips, we're having all these issues, which, I mean, we had the same issues with parts, but the used car market rose.
Right.
The values of those cars rose. We were fixing cars that 2 years prior would have been a total loss.
Interesting.
Yeah. You're fixing a 2010 Honda Civic, Honda Accord that would have,
without, we can't find parts, right?
And then you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a total. And then you write it up and you're like, how's that only 50% of the value? There's no way this thing's worth 20 grand. Well, it was because everybody was buying used cars and because they couldn't get new cars.
Well, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Supply and demand is always going to drive the market.
Definitely.
But you're starting to see some of the 0% stuff come back, or the very aggressive lease rates. So
slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. But now people are like, man, I got this really good, decent rate, but my insurance is like twice as much. So it's all relative.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we won't get too far into it, but I mean, I think I've told you kind of my take on the auto insurance is they've pushed it almost like they did kind of leading into with the covered California, with California coming in and subsidizing healthcare. I mean, it almost feels kind of like they're driving it towards that situation because they're not letting these insurance companies increase their rates accordingly.
Right.
Like when we had the fires, 4 or 5 years ago up north,
Yep.
they didn't let them increase the rates on the people that they had to cover those
Right.
multi-million-dollar homes for. And those people are turning around and building another $1 million home right where it was.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, they should be able to raise the rate. They should be a higher rate. You're in a volatile situation where in, probably another 5 to 10 years, your house is going to burn down again.
Well, and that's the crazy part about it, because I think that's a lot of the issue. And I think everybody looks at insurance and they just think expensive. Insurance equals expensive now. And it's not as competitive when you don't have the carriers, and they're just leaving because they're like, well, if you're not going to let us raise the rates to stay profitable or, whatever. And I get it. There's both sides to this where people go, no, they're too expensive and they're making all this money. But I get it. Everybody thinks that. But then when you really look at, $2,600 for a headlight,
Right.
which is ridiculous, by the way.
And they've got to pay for that. And you've got a $500 deductible. So,
yeah. And that's just one part of it.
Yeah.
That wasn't even like the fender and anything else.
the bumper coming off and all the sensors that are in the bumper that have got to come. I mean, it's a ton. Things have changed so much.
Well, I got to think that this is a lot of stress, and I think when we started the episode, you said, "Man, it's you get some days, right?
Yeah,
like
it's rough at times, especially when you're busy and things are just running, and as well as anybody too in your own business. It seems like there's always those weeks or that month where it's just like I can't touch anything that doesn't go wrong or have something else wrong with it or. It just one after the other. But then you have 6-8 months where it's everything smooth sailing. You're like, okay, this is why I did this. Here we go. This is what it's supposed to be. And then something happens or, it's just a way of life. It's the nature of life, really. I mean, something's always going to come up.
Well, I know. And, recently you were telling me that you and your wife actually went overseas for a vacation, right? And I'm like, man, this guy never takes a vacation.
No, never.
So I was really
rarely.
surprised to hear that you guys actually did that. But but you were telling me that, man, you kind of did some preparation for this, right?
Yeah.
On the health side.
It started off with I just didn't want to be that big on a plane. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. And when we go to Puerto Vallarta, not that bad. It's a couple hours on a plane I can handle. But going over there, we were doing a straight shot from LAX, and it was almost 11 hours.
Okay.
And it was rough. And I was at I think I was at the heaviest I've been. And so I decided talked to Dr. Wazo, actually.
Yeah.
Met with him, told him what was going on and what kind of where I wanted to be. And so kind of started a plan and started the 22 and 2 fast. Basically.
So just to clarify,
window.
right? 2-hour window for eating. So you
Yes,
weren't
sir.
eating for 22 hours.
Correct.
Right? And you only ate for a 2-hour window.
I would eat dinner is basically what would happen.
Okay.
Cut out a ton of sugar, cut out a ton of sodas. Ended up in a 6-month period, lost 50 pounds.
Okay.
And when we left for England, I was at about 45, almost 47. And while we were over there, I hit the 50 mark.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was, the crazy part was leading up to that. I mean, I'm not going to say I was strict on the diet. I mean,
sure.
we had weekends where we went somewhere and we ate and drank and did whatever. But I mean, 95% of that 6 months, I was on that 22 and 2. And so it was really good. Felt a lot better.
Right.
Easier to get up in the mornings.
Not as stressed out.
Shoes.
Right.
Everything was easy.
Yeah, the tying the shoe part, when I gained all my weight, that was kind of the hard part,
It's
right?
rough.
Trying to do that.
And we got over there, and the funny thing was, we were eating 3 times a day because you're with a group of people. We actually, all 4 of us went, me, my wife, and my 2 daughters, went to visit my oldest son. He's in the Air Force, and he's stationed over 2 hours north of London.
Okay.
And so we went to visit him and his wife, our daughter-in-law, and actually the only reason we did this trip, I think I told you, is my daughter-in-law called, said, hey, I got tickets for Taylor Swift for me and Cameron, which is my youngest, who's 16, huge Taylor. I mean, she's a Swiftie.
Okay.
So she says, I got tickets to the Scotland show on June 8th. You guys can all come. She can come, but she has to be here before June 8th.
Okay.
So we sat down and said, can we do it? And I said, yeah, can you guys kind of stop ordering Amazon and UPS to the house every day so we can save some more money for all this money we're going to spend? So we did, we made it work. And, but yeah, you get over there and you're with this group of people. Everybody wants to eat breakfast. Everybody wants to eat lunch. And so we
So
were
you weren't doing
eating,
the 22-2 over
not
there.
at all. I was eating 3 or 4 times a day.
And you were eating whatever you wanted.
And I was drinking with just about every meal because that's just what you do in England.
Right. And
there's pint of beer.
pastries.
You want a
and
pint of beer
everything.
with your breakfast? Well, I might as well. But it's
But
yeah,
tell me about the
did that for
part
2
that was kind
weeks.
of interesting that you were telling me is you didn't gain any weight.
Not a pound. I actually lost 2 pounds. And but yeah, I didn't gain weight, never felt bloated, never, I mean, you go out here and some restaurants are different, but for the most part, you eat, especially eat a big meal where your appetizers, you're drinking,
Yeah.
especially if it's something like beer where it's heavy and
Sure.
and you're having fun and you get that feeling that it's like I overate. I gotta go. We gotta go. I gotta lay down, or you just don't feel. You have that feeling of just
Right.
being overfull and kind of bloated and ugh. That's the best way I can describe it. Is just that ugh. And I never got that over there. And the one night that I really noticed it, we flew to Barcelona and spent 3 days in Spain. And we ate at this Italian restaurant, Spanish Italian restaurant. And we had appetizers. I think I drank 3 or 4 pints. I ate my meal, which I think I did the chicken parm, had these big plates. Ate all my food. Just while we're talking, you don't realize you're eating that much. My son ordered a large pizza. Tried a piece of his pizza. My youngest ordered, I think, she had spaghetti and meatballs, and I tried one of her meatballs, and then never felt bloated. Never. I mean, we got done. I got up. We walked around for another 4 or 5 hours around the city. I mean, and just never felt bad. Even their McDonald's. I was telling you, we have McDonald's in England. My kid goes, it tastes kind of the same. It's not the exact same. But McDonald's here in the States, especially after I'd lost the weight, made me sick.
Okay.
Gave me a stomach ache, like halfway through a quarter pounder. I was like, oh, this is gross.
Right.
And it's all the preservatives. I've kind of started doing the research, and we talked about it, all the seed oils, all the preservatives, everything that's in the food that we eat is horrible. Horrible for you. Horrible.
And it was that noticeable over there. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you're
never
going in
felt
there,
it.
and I get it, people will say, "Oh, well, you're walking everywhere," but that's not really what it is.
No.
You're saying that when you ate all that food,
Yeah.
that you felt better.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't feel like you were like, carrying around like extra.
Never felt bloated, never felt sick, never had that overfull feeling no matter how much we ate. And to the walking part, I was walking every day. I was walking in the morning. I was walking at lunch, and 3 or 4 days a week, me and my wife would go walk after dinner. So I was getting, 7, 8 miles in a day while I was doing the diet, trying to lose weight. And so, yeah, being over there, I mean, it was a huge difference. And you look at the ingredients on packages, and it's not a laundry list. There's 4 or 5 things in some of the stuff. I mean, even you look at a bag of chips over there compared to the bag of chips here, and it's just night and day difference on the ingredients.
That's crazy.
And
This is something that you discovered on your own.
Yeah.
Right. People talk about it. People. There's a lot of people who talk about this. I mean, the ingredients thing is a big deal.
Yeah.
But you actually going over there and saying, "Hey, here you had to do 22-2, right, on fasting
For 6 months.
For 6 months, walking 7 miles a day, pretty much, right? You and your wife, trying to get ready for this trip, and then you're thinking, okay, I'm going to give myself some room just in case, because I'm going to go all in because I've earned it after 6 months, right? That mentality,
Right.
And you're telling me that you didn't gain a pound.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And my son's been there. They've been there 2 years, and he can't gain weight. He's actually lost weight, and he eats like a horse.
It's amazing. I mean, I think this is going to be the big topic, but I told you I struggle with my weight. I lost 83 pounds, that one time, and I did it with keto, and I didn't quite go as extreme as you on the 20 and 2. I went 16 and 8, but there was a couple of days I did a 24-hour fast.
Yeah.
I think the longest one I did was 44 hours, but it wasn't because it was a plan, but it was like, hey, I made it this far, so let's just go a little bit. I'm not really hungry, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And it's since we've gotten back, I really haven't gotten back to that diet, and I think I've gained probably almost 30 of that 50 back.
You're kidding.
But I'm getting ready to go back and just really go at it again and get down and just kind of change changed a lot of stuff. I got real comfortable being over there for 2 weeks and then kind of coming back.
Sure.
Just never really got back into the groove. So,
That's not abnormal
and then
once
the
you kind of
holidays
get out of there.
came, and
Well, right. But you're probably thinking, man, I ate all this stuff and I didn't gain any weight,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so
it made
you're
it a
just
lot
kind of
easier to fall back into it because you just, being over there, it was crazy, just the difference.
I'm just kind of blown away that you're saying that even the McDonald's,
Yeah.
like you ate it and you felt like, wow, this
Yeah.
is amazing, right? Like you
Yeah.
didn't feel like, and I get what you're talking about because every once in a while when you want to have that spurt, because as a kid, that was kind of the
Grew
thing.
up on it. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a treat. That was
a treat.
And then you got older and you had money, so you're able to do it more often, and it just got to be a kind of a normal thing. Like, I know your daughter's younger, but my middle daughter, when she was playing club soccer, you're constantly on the road every weekend, and
Sure.
so you would just stop. And, I like In-N-Out better than McDonald's, but sometimes that's not an option depending on where you're at or whatever the case. But, some of that stuff you have to eat. It's just, I mean, it's a convenience.
It is
You're able
convenient.
to grab it and eat it while you're driving, or, pull over in a parking lot, eat real quick. And so it's definitely the convenience thing, but it's just, you don't realize how bad it is for you. And it didn't used to be like that. I was telling you before we started, there's that post with the McDonald's fries on the ingredients from like 1979 or 80
Right.
to now. And now it's a laundry list where before it was 3 or 4 items that were in the ingredients. So
That's a huge deal because
is.
you're seeing a lot more of this like laundry list of items. And it's crazy because the healthy stuff, like I was looking online and somebody was touting this 3 ingredient, like, chip, like a corn chip. It's like $14 a bag.
Right.
Like who's going to spend $14 a bag?
Exactly. And
Right?
and here it's the biggest part of it is the preservatives. The preservatives they put so they can make it in bulk and it can sit on shelves and sit in warehouses, where a lot of the stuff in England they're not allowed to have that.
Right.
I mean, there's so many ingredients that are banned there.
So people probably have to go shopping more often.
Exactly.
They're not going to the Costco and loading up on 3 months worth of food because they need to put it in their pantry. So
Yeah. And the biggest difference there, you can, you go to their grocery store, which we would every couple of days go to get for what we were going to have for dinners, if we were making dinner or lunch, whatever, while we were there. And, they've got bread, then they've got the day-old bread, which is half off, and then they got 2-day-old bread, which is 75% off, because their bread only lasts 3 days.
So
Maybe
did you try the 3-day-old bread
No,
just for the
no,
heck of it? No,
no.
you just went with the
Just-
fresh.
just-
Okay.
just-
Okay. I was just
fresh
curious.
bread.
I just wanted to see if it tasted a little bit funny.
No, but it's, and kind of, it was weird because you don't see that here. So when I made the comment, my son goes, "Yeah, he's all, you buy a loaf of bread, it's only good for 3 or 4 days max." And so,
So you eat it.
You eat it.
And you don't feel bloated.
Yeah.
You don't feel like,
Yeah, it doesn't have all those preservatives.
man, it's a lot of work to try to eat healthy here.
And it's expensive.
Yes.
It's expensive. And you have to do research on a lot of stuff. Just because something says it's healthy for you, you start looking at ingredients and you can't pronounce the ingredient, and then you look up the ingredient. And
Oh man.
you're
Yeah.
like, that's what's in formaldehyde? Why are we putting
That's
why are we
crazy.
eating that?
Well, it's amazing how like you're so aware of this because you went through that process of
Yeah.
like, hey, I really want to lose this weight, and then now you're kind of looking at the specifics of why you're here, and I mean, getting back to the body shop, I mean, you got a lot of work, so you're
Yeah.
the type of load that you have and the stuff that you deal with. For you to take a 2-week vacation like that, man, you had to probably like really push and get things to a spot because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have other people that work there too, but you're the guy that's,
Yeah,
handling this.
I write all the estimates. When we're dealing with insurance companies, I'm the one that's, dealing with them, their adjusters, photos, ordering the parts, going over with the guys what they're doing, and if they have questions or if something comes up and you have to do a supplement once they tear it apart. But we did a pretty good job. I had the 2 weeks that I was going to be gone. I had that booked, which, I mean, kind of at that time we had started to slow down a little bit, so it wasn't quite as hectic. But I had enough for the guys to get through those 2 weeks, and then I had written some estimates kind of, prior, and let the people know that I was going to be gone. But if they wanted to schedule, they could call. And I have a laptop that mirrors my computer at work.
Right.
So I'm able, when they had an issue with a part and we had to order another part, or we needed to order parts for something else, I was able to open that computer. The time difference was the hardest part of it.
Right.
Was, me trying to figure out, okay, are they still there? Let me call them, make sure they don't need me to order anything. And then just, we were out sightseeing a lot. So, it was hard to do that, but I would get back to the house and, hey, do you need anything? Or they would text me, email me, hey, we need this, or can you do
Yeah,
this?
because it's like a 6 or 9 hour difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
8 hours.
8
It was
hours.
an 8 hour
Okay.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're 8 hours.
Right. So
Yeah.
then I get up in the morning, they're calling me. I'm like, what time is it? So it took some getting used to, but yeah, no, it actually worked pretty well. The best part of it, and as I tell people, is my dad got used to, I wasn't there for 2 weeks, so maybe that can happen once every 5 to 10 years.
That's good to hear, right?
He stresses out. When I'm not there, because I do so much within the shop. So it's hard when you rely on one person to do that stuff, and eventually, hopefully, we'll, get to that point where I can pay somebody else to do half of what I do, and I'll still be busy.
No, I hear you. I hear you. But man, I gotta say, like, I have always really appreciated how you've always taken such good care of us.
Good.
And that is a testament, because it's like, it's not even like a question, right? If something happens, it's not like I'm looking anywhere else. I'm like, man, if you're going to tow it to this place, right?
No,
And believe me, man, I like to see you, but
nobody likes to see me. Everybody, when they leave, tell me, I hope I don't see you again.
I know, man. I just want to stop by and just say hello sometimes, right? But I get what you're saying, man. But it's like, it's such a stressful situation.
It is.
So.
It is all the way around for everybody involved. I mean, it's a hard fact of life, and it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
The influx of people into Bakersfield, even just since COVID. I mean, you've got people from the Bay Area moving in. You got people from LA moving. I mean, it's just gotten so much bigger. I mean, I've lived here all my life, and I mean, the size of this town. I mean, there was nothing out here when I was in high school.
Right. And now it's like, it's just growing all over the place, and
it's in all directions. It's crazy. It's crazy to see, and just see the amount of people. And I mean, for me, I love Bakersfield. It still kind of, to me, has that hometown feel.
Right.
I mean, you still run into people that you went to high school with, and that you met here, you met there, and then being in business, and being at the front desk all the time, meeting all these new people. It's there's very rarely I go somewhere that I don't know somebody. My wife hates it, but because I've always got to stop and talk to somebody.
I know, right? It's like you're talking, hey, I haven't seen you in like a while. What are you up to here, there? And then she's probably like,
right? Oh,
it's like 20 minutes. It's like, what's going on? No, that's great.
But yeah, no, it's definitely been good. I mean, I tell people I wouldn't have wanted to do anything different. No, if I knew how this was going to work and where we were going to be in 20 years. I mean, it's a blessing to work with my family, see them every day. The shop provides for my family, my sister's family, my mom and dad. So it's awesome. My 3 kids have, I've been able to do so much with them because of the business, not just monetarily, but like when they were playing soccer, and when they do things like, my youngest picked up golf last year. She just decided she wanted to try out for the golf team as a sophomore in high school.
Hey.
Had never held a golf club. But me and her are able to go golf, and I was able to go to the kids' soccer games when they were in high school, take off early. My dad didn't always like it, but he couldn't tell me no.
Right. That's the best part.
And, and I think we had the conversation too, is, everything's changed in the body shop industry in the last 5 or 7 years, that, these corporations have come in and bought these independent shops and these family-owned shops. And I don't know what I'd do, because I don't think I could work for somebody again. I did the corporate thing when I was young, worked for Home Depot for a while, and I didn't like it then, and it wasn't nearly what it is now with corporations. So I don't think I could listen to somebody else.
Well, no. And I got to tell you, that's a great point. But also, now, because you own your own family business, you can give the level of service that you want to give.
Definitely.
And that's why you take such good care of people.
Yeah. It's our name on the building. It's our name on your vehicle when it leaves.
Yes.
So it's definitely that's our goal, is to get you back in your car, things to be the way they were prior. You didn't have any real big headaches while the car was in the shop.
Right.
I can't eliminate all that, because you do sometimes have to deal with insurance companies that are a headache, which you found out.
Yep.
And I think I told you probably our second or third conversation. It's just a game.
Yeah.
We're playing with numbers, and it's a game to them. They got this number has to be here. This number has to be here. When those numbers meet, then they kind of get on board, but we had to get them there.
Right.
You
And
know?
and then you were really a big part of that
And the other
because
problem is with big insurance companies like that is you're talking to somebody. I'm not talking to that person. I'm talking to somebody on the auto side,
right.
and they don't talk to each other.
Right.
And the person you're talking to may have put notes in, may have not put notes in. The guy I'm talking to, he may not read those notes. They may not be there. So, they just, it's hard. It definitely is. And COVID kind of made that worse. It sucks that we have to keep bringing that up
Right.
because it
But it's
was,
the it was
it's
it was
changed
huge.
everything. It changed everything. They sent all those people home to work from home. Some of them never came back. I mean, and it's just like,
You know, it's funny you say that because when I would call, right, and say the person wasn't available,
mhm,
then it would get routed to someone else. And I'm like, and you can always tell, when somebody's
someone's at
working from
home.
home, right? Maybe the dog's barking in the back
Uh-huh.
and you're like, okay. And then I'd always joke around. It's like, hey, where are you at? Oh, well, I'm in, such and such state or I'm here. And it was interesting to like, go through it. And then depending on who you talk to, it felt like, oh man, I gotta kind of start over again.
Yeah.
And then like the information wasn't flowing. So to your point, I'm not sure that they're having to get up to speed. I felt like I had to repeat myself over and over again.
And
And then
over.
I would systematically start here and go, this was the expectation, right? And then I'd
Mhm.
call you and go, hey, did they call you? No, man, they haven't called me, And it's like, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah.
so they're telling me one thing.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that's intentional, but this is what is getting overcomplicated. And everything's trying to get streamlined,
Uh-huh.
but the art of customer service
Is gone.
is gone. And it's starting to go that way. So when you start to get even more and more, like you were telling me that a lot of them are trying to get software to take the photos and try to like,
The AI
see in there, right?
I've had a couple come across where the insurance companies are using AI. They just plug the photos in. AI has the estimating principles, and it just builds you out an estimate. It's not good.
Right.
I mean, just like anything for the first time, it's
Yeah,
going to
it's-
take work. It's going to take, but I mean, it's eventually, I think it'll get to that point, but you're always going to have somebody that has to do something, add something, change something, because it's again, you're doing it from pictures. It's just like you're going to tell me that AI is going to be better than a guy that's been doing this for 20 years, but now you're making him do it from pictures, which that was a part of COVID. Everything went to these
Right.
pictures and this virtual, and it's the other part was we'll get back to not saying any names, but
Yeah.
there was one insurance company that when I would call in to submit a supplement or tell them that we needed something, I was on the phone on hold, worst case 15 minutes. When they sent everybody to work from home, it went to almost 45 minutes.
Wow.
And a lot
45
of that,
minutes in your day.
a lot of that, I mean, if you look at, how much work do you get done when you're at home? If, say you're working for somebody else, I know me and you are going to get a lot more done
Right.
because we're working
You
for
have to.
ourselves. But when you got somebody that's getting paid what they were getting paid to sit in an office 8 hours, now they're sitting at home. I mean, they're turning their computer on, but they may not log into the next file or the next claim until they go get their cup of coffee, move around, figure out,
Watch an episode of Cobra Kai.
right?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
mean, to that, I mean, companies were coming out with something you could plug into your mouse that made it look like your mouse was moving because they were starting to
Oh, I
watch
heard about
mouse
that.
movement.
I
They were
heard
like,
about
"Oh,
that.
you haven't moved on your computer for 45
They,
minutes."
they had somebody that had like I think an AI like version of themselves like on Zoom meetings, man. It was like so funny.
Well,
right?
people were
Like, you just,
using
like,
backgrounds. They were on vacation.
And they were on
working from
vacation.
working from home.
Where are you? Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm here in Belize,
Yeah,
whatever.
So, yeah,
but-
it did. It changed a lot. COVID changed a lot, and some of these companies saw that they didn't need a brick and mortar. They
right.
didn't need these adjusters out in the field because now they don't have to pay their car insurance and the gas and the travel time. And now you just get the customer to download an app, send in photos. And
Sure. Let them
that gets the
do
process started. Because
get the
what
process.
happens is they sent you an estimate.
Yep.
They were sending out a check and get the car to the shop, and then the car gets to the shop. Now the body shop's got to do all the legwork. I got to tear it apart. I got to find everything that they couldn't see in those photos.
Right.
I've got to submit all of those photos and all those parts to them. And then they go back and look at it and go, "Oh, well, we found a used deck lid, and so your estimate's $2,000 cheaper now." And it's money. It's all money.
Well, it sounds like I got to tell you, man, it is really a breath of fresh air that you care this much and you take such care of your customers. So, how do people find you?
So we're at 3154 Landco Drive,
Right?
661-328-9740. Shop has a Facebook page, Artiaga's Collision, and an Instagram page, Artiaga's Collision.
Hey, man, thank you so much for
No
coming on the
problem.
show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, you heard it here from Reuben, just talking about how complex and complicated, this whole process can be, but it's a really good thing to have someone who is passionate about what they do and that will take good care of you. So if you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I always encourage you to subscribe. If you get a moment, rate the show and leave a comment. You can find us on YouTube at Hey Charles Biz, on Apple Podcast and Spotify at Hey Charles 77 on Instagram and TikTok, and Charles Ernst on LinkedIn. See you next time.